Hey guys, so this is the full discussion I had with Ben and Amaris Salazar. They are co-founders of the pro-life ministry Arks of Bulrushes, and which is based here in Bakersfield, California. And I've had the honor to be part of this ministry and to go out with these brothers and sisters to abortion clinics. It's been such an encouraging experience to be able to serve with these brothers and sisters. So if you guys haven't done so already, please subscribe to the podcast. That's where these discussions are uploaded first. So hopefully you guys enjoy. I do want to apologize for the sound quality. I had, during the interview, I didn't realize until about 2/3 of the way that I wasn't recording with my mic. I was recording with my laptop. So I apologize for the audio quality in that regard. I did my best to tweak it so it gets more tolerable, and it's still you can still understand what's being said, but so hopefully you guys can look past that. And right now we just have one mic, and we have a free software that I use to record. So it didn't really let me know that I wasn't using my mic. So hopefully you guys could look past that. And one more thing, Ben took it upon himself to create a resource page for all the links or resources that he and Amaris mentioned in this discussion. He's a new author on the Saints Edified website, and he already published a couple articles that are just amazing. They're so informative, and he cites his work, which is great. So if you guys want to go ahead and check that out, you guys can. It'll be in the description below. All right, so enjoy. All right, Ben and Amaris, thank you for joining me on the Saints Edified podcast. It's been a privilege to serve with you guys with the pro-life ministry, which we'll talk about in this episode. Well, first, before we go any further, I kind of want people to know you a little more. Ben and Amaris, I met you guys at Santa Monica, which Amaris doesn't really remember, but I met you guys. I remember. And then when you guys saw me again years later, you guys didn't remember me. That's okay. No,
sorry, there's like a million Hispanics in LA.
Yeah, no, but it was kind of cool how we kind of reconnected years later, and now we partnered together in this ministry. And I try to go out with you guys as much as I can on Saturdays that I don't work, and it's just been a huge blessing.
Likewise.
Yeah, man. I really thank God for you guys. You guys have been a huge impact in my life, and especially the boldness I see out there that you guys have. It's been encouraging. So, first of all, I want to know a little bit about your background. And thinking about it, maybe I never really asked about your guys' testimony. I don't know if I have or not, but this will be a good time to share that. So, how did God save you?
Well, first of all, thanks for phrasing it that way. Instead of saying, when did you accept Jesus into your heart, you said, how did God save you? I don't have a dramatic experience. I don't have an account of I was a drug addict and then the Lord saved me. But I would say that I was saved in a Baptist church in El Salvador, listening to a very simple presentation of the gospel when I was probably in my teenage years, is what I would say. That's when the Lord convicted me of my sin, convicted me of my need of a Savior.
How old were you?
I want to say 13.
Oh, man. Okay, so we have about the same time frame then. That's when God saved me as well, around the same age. So what about you, Amers?
Well, I grew up in quote unquote the church. I went to a private Christian school, and I felt like that gave me somewhat of a bubble of Christianity where I didn't really take it too seriously for many years of my life. But around the age of maybe 14 or 15, I read the book Don't Waste Your Life by John Piper. And it really gave me a really strong grasp of what the cross did for me. Whereas being some distant, abstract ideology, it became more personal. Yeah. And I feel like everything just happened really fast. Like I started learning about Calvinism, and that really encouraged my walk a lot. I don't really have like either a crazy dramatic testimony, just kind of I read a book and God used that.
Nice. All right. So and now you guys are married. How long have you guys been married now?
Almost 6 years this October, and we also have a 2.5-year-old son, Jeremiah.
Nice. Yeah, Jeremiah. I love that name.
Yes. He certainly takes after the weeping prophet. That's for sure.
No, because he was gonna name.
I was gonna name Eli.
Jeremiah David. Yes.
We were gonna name him David Jeremiah. You guys were gonna name Malachi Jeremiah David.
Oh, that's what it was. That's what it was.
That was gonna be a disaster. In the making.
Yeah, no, so that's great. But
Your own baby name.
I
I think I was messing with Amaris a little bit too.
I
But I was like, you know
know.
what, I'm gonna still name him.
I mean, no one has dibs on the name.
I
Anyone
know.
can.
Yeah, it's fun. I
Yeah.
think it's funny, but no, that's great. So I've always appreciated you guys.
Thanks.
You guys definitely offer a lot to the body of Christ, and in your friendship as well. So one thing that we're going to talk about in this episode is really just the whole pro-life movement, right? When I reconnected with you guys, I think it was you, Amaris, I can't remember who, but you guys brought up to me were like, hey, like, is there like a pro-life ministry? And I had no answer. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anyone actually that was doing pro-life ministry. Fast forward, now you guys help run this ministry.
Yeah, one of the elders, John Bryant, he got us. I think we asked him if there was any pro-life ministry in Bakersfield, and he said, "Well, I know." He said, "I know Nick used to go out to the abortion mill," so he got us in contact. And then we all we got together one evening and had this idea to start something, because it was all in our hearts during that time. And Tiffany too. Tiffany and David Ruiz too were there.
From what I understand is that Amaris, like you have a lot of experience from different extremes, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I want to talk about because like I personally I just don't know many people with that experience. I don't, and so it's going to be a privilege to ask you these questions.
Oh wow, thank you.
Yeah, I know it's a blessing, and I'm sure because of your experience, God has given you a lot of wisdom in this area. So let's talk about your experience. What are things that you've learned in your past about pro-life ministry, just in general?
Okay, well, I started 2009. I was at church and I saw like a Christian newspaper. I forgot what it's called. But I had already been going to the abortion mill since I was like 15 years old with my mom and a few other friends. And actually, I helped start a little pro-life club at my school, which we would go maybe like once every week to the abortion mill back in Downey. That was pretty cool. But anyways, so that's where I first started. I actually first went to the abortion mill when I was in 6th grade. I went twice. I was out there with another friend and my mom in 6th grade, and I actually stopped going after I think it was like 2 or 3 times because there were some pro-choice feminists out there. Oh, wow. And I had my sign. I was only like 11 years old, 10 or 11, and they came up to me and my friends and my mom and were like, "That looks like a meatball. That's not a baby." And they were screaming at us, and it was just really
This
chaotic.
was 2009, you said?
No, this was when I was in 6th grade.
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
So, I don't know. God had put in my heart at a very young age to be out there. I remember the first encounter with abortion. I was actually in 3rd grade. We had a missions conference, and there was a booth with a pro-life booth, and I wasn't supposed to, but I grabbed a pamphlet. And I was like, "What is abortion?" I didn't know what abortion was, and there were really graphic pictures on there, and I was like, "What is this?" Like, it really, being at such a young age, it really made me, I feel more sensitive to it than, because I was still innocent, and didn't know what any of this was. And yeah, going back to that. So I stopped in 6th grade for a little bit, and then I resumed when I was like 15 or 16. And at first it was just me and my mom, or me and my dad would go out. I think like a year or 2 later, I found out about Survivors. The full name is Survivors of the Abortion Holocaust. It's a youth boot camp for 2 weeks where they train you in the pro-life movement, like how to make arguments. They teach you how to do activism, how to do it because these are kids that come from all over the United States, and we meet in, I think it's a little bit more up Modesto, I think it is. And we stay there for 2 weeks. We sleep there, so it's legit. And for the first week, it's just training, seminars, and we have speakers from different pro-life movements. Like we've had Troy Newman from Operation Rescue has come and talked with us. The Center for Bioethical Reform, abortionno.org, one of their people came and spoke to us. And then the second week is just activism. We've gone very interesting places. We've been to Venice Beach, Laguna Beach. We actually protested in front of an abortionist house in Hollywood. Oh, wow. I think it was Josepha Selects, I think it was. That was interesting. We protested at universities like UCI and some other colleges. We even not really protested. It was protesting at a church, local church that wasn't doing anything about.
Wow.
We were calling them out basically, but not in like Westboro Baptist type of way. We were passing out flyers in front of the church, and we did have signs.
Right.
We did a lot of abortion mills. That was really neat. We got to talk with some abortion workers, and yeah, we did a lot. So,
Wow.
But yeah, I did that for 2 years.
Earlier you said something about when you were young, you saw some graphic photos, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I want to ask you about. Personally, just to be honest with you guys, I've always been kind of mixed. There's some photos I think are necessary that people might consider graphic. Other ones are just like, okay, it's going to look like now you're scaring people off. Like now they won't even talk to you because it's just so graphic. With your experience in YouTube, do you guys think that graphic signs are useful?
I think it's extremely useful. I know it's a very controversial topic, and I understand the other side as well. I don't want to be insensitive or numb to their feelings and their arguments, because it is true. Like if I am a mom, and it's hard for them to see at such a young age a baby being delimbed, and that's not something pleasant, and I totally understand. But on the other case, I can only speak from my experience, and my experience is that it changed me, and it really gave me an understanding of what's really going on. I don't know if you guys know about the story of Emmett Till. Okay.
I don't know.
He was it in the? I don't know too much about it, so just take my word. Sorry, with a grain of salt. But I think it was back in the 40s. He was murdered by 2 racist white men. He was black for whistling at a white woman.
Oh, okay.
And his mom decided to during his memorial to have the casket open so they could see what slavery, or not sorry, what racism does. And so it went all over the world, these pictures, and it really struck people in a different way because people hadn't really seen the effects of hate, So these pictures really got the word going about how racism is still happening in the United States and how deep it runs. So
I've heard about that story. I just didn't hear that last part. I never heard.
Oh, really?
That's really that's neat. Wow. I mean,
that's why he's known.
Yeah, people didn't care about him until she released those pictures.
Right.
Okay.
So it's kind of the same thing with the Holocaust too. People didn't know like what was going on until the pictures were released, and like pictures, like the cliche goes, say 1,000 words. So I think it is very important to have graphic signs.
Yeah.
And Arturo, if I can be perhaps a little bit even more polemic in my response on that, I have a quote here from an article on the First Things website by Philip Jeffrey, and it says, quote, "The left did not gain the cultural upper hand by incrementalism." And I'm kind of jumping the gun here. We're going to talk about that later, but you'll see, I hope, the point I'm trying to make here. I continue reading the quote. "The sexual revolution that gave us the current abortion regime did not come about by baby steps. Cultural battles are won with bold claims and striking images. The left has been winning the culture, especially on issues of abortion, sex, and gender, by offering materially comfortable middle and upper class Americans the chance to imitate Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and Malcolm X. Abortion thus becomes a great and noble cause. This strategy works because many Americans, especially young men, feel that their lives are unmoored, banal, and hemmed in by forces beyond their control. They have an itch for moral heroism. The pro-life movement needs to take a clear stand. Vigorous action and bold lawmaking does not mean giving up on caring about mothers and children alike." I'm kind of digressing there, but my point was, you have the sector of society that pushes abortion as their agenda. They make no qualms about using any kinds of means, even using symbols of society, of history, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., to present their case. Why should we who are trying to stand for the unborn shy away from using the very things that bring about awareness of these things. Just like Emmett Till, why should we not tell people what is going on? Because a lot of times people might have a misunderstanding about what abortion is. Some people might think that there is no suffering involved, that there is no mutilation going on, that there is no actual dismemberment going on. And once they see those pictures, then they can be jolted into reality. Maybe not at that point, maybe later on. Maybe that's something that is used by God to open their eyes to what is going on later on in their lives. But we have been desensitized to such a degree by social media, by movies, by things that otherwise we have no problem watching, that it becomes a little hypocritical when there's an objection raised to images of what is actually going on.
Okay, yeah, no, good points.
Oh, and like I said, I can only speak from my experience, but I've heard countless times, usually when we encounter someone that has changed their mind about abortion, especially at the abortion mill, they'll tell me, I didn't know that it was this. They'll refer to the pictures. I didn't know it was like this. And so I know they're effective. Of course, it's only the gospel that changes hearts ultimately, but these are just extra tools that can kind of at least get them to talk with us and show them, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's going to happen if you go through this, So.
Yeah. And also, as far as one last point on this, when it comes to our children, a lot of people might object to using graphic signs and say it's wrong to show children these kinds of pictures. However, I would rather my son hear from me what is going on.
That's true.
To expose him to reality in a way that I can at least educate him and not have someone else educate him or misinform him about what's going on. And I think it's very important for children to be aware this is what's happening to other children.
Right, because it's in the proper context too. They're learning with two loving parents and who can explain to them what it is.
Yeah, you guys made some good points. A couple of years ago, Amaris, we were discussing whether or not, how far should we take this, making abortion illegal? Should abortion doctors be criminalized, and should the mothers also? And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, the mothers probably don't know, but they're being told it's not a human, and maybe the doctors also don't know. They probably see it as just a couple of cells, not human life. And quickly, you just shot back at that, like, no, actually, look this up, and I did, and I'm like, oh wow, these guys actually do know. It was one of those moments where, like, I realized, okay, I don't know much at all about this ministry or about abortion, our laws, or any of that. It really caused me to dive in deeper. Let's say it does become illegal. Should the doctors who aborted babies before that point be thrown in jail or criminalized?
Actions they've done in the past?
Yeah.
No, because I don't believe in retroactive laws.
Okay.
But my idea would be once the law is active, anything from that moment on,
Okay. The women who want abortions because it's an inconvenience for them, they're going to bring up excuses like, oh, I can't afford it, or I need to finish my school, or whatever. But if they get caught in the act, so to speak, should they also be punished or criminalized?
I would apply the same law that's applied for newborns and have that the same for unborn babies, because the only difference between a newborn and an unborn baby is location. So if the baby if we can prove that the baby's a human, which is very easy to prove, then they are have the same rights as you and me.
I agree with my wife on retroactive laws. So I agree on that point. But from the moment of abolition forward, the same standards to any other murder must apply. What are some of the elements you see in any kind of murder? You have the actors of the crime, you have aiders and abettors, you have accessories before, during, and after the fact. All of these have some kind of prosecution charge to them. Why, if you make a distinction between those elements being carried forward in any other kind of murder and not for babies, the implications are far more profound, because what you are in essence saying is the unborn are not as valuable as those that are outside of the womb. And those people usually or generally have no problem with aiders and abettors and accessories before, during, after fact, and actors being prosecuted for children, for babies. There's actually a lot of outrage when there's a little baby's murder, when a little child is tortured, and people usually cry out for justice in that case.
Because they are helpless, which I think is even more deserving of prosecution, because these are not only humans, but they're vulnerable, helpless humans.
Right. So in reality, if you make that dichotomy, that really biologically all that distinguishes them is their size and level of development, you are denying that all life is to be equally protected under the law.
Okay, all right, that's a good way to put it. So, have you guys listened to that Q&A with Ben Shapiro when someone asked him that question, and he pretty much says that the woman is the victim. So why should we punish the victim?
Of course, each case is different. At the end of the day, the end product is the same. A life was taken violently. However, when you call women victims, first of all, perhaps Ben Shapiro needs to spend more time on social media or out there in the abortion mills. Right. When you actually, and we have been at the abortion mills, when no matter how much you try to argue with someone biologically, scientifically, this is a baby, this is a human being, this is a human person.
We give them absolutely no excuse. I just like, we offer them help. I mean, maybe I understand we're strangers, but there's absolutely no reason. I feel, if you need somewhere to stay, there's places. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but victims, I understand. I sympathize. I don't want to be unsympathetic.
Well, just to clarify though, I think what you meant by victim, because now I'm remembering that video. Okay. Victim as far as like being like duped to believe that it's not human, and also like kind of just being pressured by society and their parents. They're like a victim in that way, So it still applies to everything you guys are saying. It still applies. It's just it's just a little
like
odd.
A brainwash, like they're brainwashed.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh yeah, I totally
It's a kind of ignorance. They get abortion thinking it's okay.
Right now, that's why education and activism is so important, because we do need to, and pictures, we do need to let people know what is going on, because it is a hidden Holocaust in some manner, because not a lot of people know. What they just assume it's a blob of tissue.
We don't want to, as my wife said, we don't want to be unsympathetic to difficult situations that women are under, people are under, etc. But I believe you used I believe I heard you say the word that some people are ignorant, right? Or they're duped to such a degree that they might be ignorant of what abortion really is. Yes. Whether it's sold as women care, women health care, whatever the case is, right? Would that apply to any other action that is deemed a crime in the society? Could a group get together and convince someone or dupe someone or brainwash someone to such a degree that they would think that killing a fully grown man or a child is justifiable to some degree, depending on your circumstances? That's not going to fly in court. You can't be, Your Honor, I was not aware of the law. Ignorance is not a defense. And so if we're going to start compromising on something like this, that although it has a lot of emotional baggage and a lot of things that are valid concerns that we should address, then we need to start doing that for other crimes as well, and start peeling away the stigmas that rightfully have been attributed to things like stealing, to things like murder, to things like adultery, things like that. And we already see a lot of those things crumbling down in our society, and this is just a symptom.
And also too, so about that, now at one point I thought that doctors were ignorant of this, right? I thought they were it's crazy. Now I look back and I'm like, why did I even think that? I get on the benefit of the doubt like nothing, until Amaris challenged me on it. So and Amber looking up a couple videos. Obviously, there's those extreme videos where the doctor's like, it looks like he's possessed and he's like, get angry with the protesters. Right. Is there a way to demonstrate that doctors actually do know what they're doing? They do know it's a human life.
Absolutely. I mean, I have two quotes here, if I may. cite them. One is from March of 2017 from the American College of Pediatricians.
This is not an abortionist quote.
Right. No,
Okay.
It's not an abortionist. However, it is an authority that regulates the practice of medicine.
Right.
Okay.
And especially if abortionists want to consider themselves doctors.
Okay. So they would fall under that category, like.
Right.
Of, So.
So it's an article on their website called "When Human Life Begins," and it says the following quote: "The predominance of human biological research confirms that human life begins at conception, fertilization. At fertilization, the human being emerges as a whole, genetically distinct, individuated, zygotic, living human organism, a member of the species Homo sapiens, needing only the proper environment in order to grow and develop. The difference between the individual in its adult stage and in its zygotic stage is one of form, not nature. This statement focuses on the scientific evidence of when an individual human life begins." End quote. That's from again, the American College of Pediatricians. To be fair, they do go on to say, to prove that life begins at conception, that humanity begins at conception, is not the same to say that personhood begins at conception. So they do have this weird dichotomy there. But there's another quote, and this is from Dr. Maureen Kondik, not an abortionist, but this is from the Charlotte Lozier Institute. In an article dated June 11, 2014, he says, quote, "The conclusion that human life begins at sperm-egg fusion is uncontested, objective, based on the universally accepted scientific method of distinguishing different cell types from each other, and on ample scientific evidence, thousands of independent peer-reviewed publications. Moreover, it is entirely independent of any specific ethical, moral, political, or religious view of human life or of human embryos."
I was reminded a bit by what Nick said. He said that science is on the pro-life side, without a doubt.
Absolutely.
And some people might hear that and laugh, like, really? You're going to say that, really? But then look at this. Yeah, I don't know. That's just, it blows my mind still, man, to think that you can know that it's a human life and you just end it for a paycheck, basically, And so,
Right.
yeah, so.
I've had some interesting quotes. I've seen quotes from abortionists admitting that it is a baby. I think I sent them to you a long time ago, and I can't find them.
No, you sent it to me, but yeah, that's crazy. And they're out there. You just
Maybe there's a way. Can you attach links?
I can. Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually,
I'm gonna try to find the quotes.
actually, Ben he's now an author on Saints Edified.
Oh, okay.
So good.
Maybe we can provide some resource, like a resource page.
Author to be.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, because I'm so mad I can't find them.
That actually might be a good idea. It's like for your first articles.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like a supplement to.
Yeah.
This issue of abortion is not a new thing. Obviously, it's been with us from the beginning of time. You have homicide, you have Cain and Abel, but abortion has been with us, unfortunately, since the fall. Really, that potential in humans has been there. But we have not only scripture, for example, Exodus 20:13, telling us, "Thou shalt not murder," but we also have Revelation 22:15, where God warns that the hands of shedding and blood, murderers, will be outside of God's kingdom. The ancient Didache, written around 96 AD, says, "Thou shalt not procure abortion nor commit infanticide." 96 AD.
Wow.
So even outside of Scripture, you see this affirmed. But if scientifically babies are human and you can't arbitrarily deny personhood to them, and if you can't just kill your 1-year-old because you can't feed him or because, I don't know, he or she gets in the way of your dreams or your perceived potential or aspiration, then a scientific case has been made for the equal protection of all human life. And so we see the harmony of God's special revelation in Scripture and his general revelation in creation, both of them attesting without a shadow of a doubt, and even those in the pro-choice camp cannot deny, cannot run away from the concept of humanity, but they have to remove personhood from them. And especially, why is that important in the United States particularly? Because that's how you can do away with them. Because of the inalienable rights that are given to persons, that's where they found their haven, their refuge, to say, but these are not persons. Therefore, they are not entitled to their inalienable rights. Therefore, although we can make profit of their parts as human, quasi-humans, we deny them the rank of persons.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so what do you guys think about the pro-life ministry or movement today, and especially in our country?
Personally, I'm grateful for anyone, whether believer or not, who believes that abortion is a criminal act or immoral at any level, right? That's a good thing. Any mind change on this issue is a cause for rejoicing. There's two aspects, though, that do bring me concern. And number one, to try to speak on this issue apart from an objective, transcendent ground of morality. And number two, in terms of law, they often seem to be kind of getting in the way of bills that would actually bring about the end of abortion in specific states or localities, which to me begs the question of what is the purpose of the pro-life movement in the first place. So that's what I would say.
And it seems like you guys have like a well-balanced approach. Do you think in America right now that our pro-life ministries and movements, you think it's going in a good direction? Or what Nick said is that they actually limit themselves by not using scripture, for example. You know, so
Like at Survivors, I don't know how it is now, but it was looked down to quote scripture because we also partnered with Roman Catholics, and they were we didn't want to step on too many toes as far as theology goes, so we just put it off the table completely, like any theology or any gospel at all, which I don't agree with at all. As far as Survivors went, when I was doing that, we're wanting to hold accountable the churches that were only like 2 minutes away from the worship.
I see.
I was like, look what's happening, literally walking distance from your church. You should be doing more.
Right.
I do feel like there's not enough being done right now.
Right.
I feel as just a society, even within the Christian society, we're numb to what's happening. Murder is one of the most horrendous actions a person can commit, and yet we treat it like it's just part of America. Abortion happens, and we'll do what we can, but not much is going to happen. And
what you just said right there was exactly what I think about what's going on in America today with the pro-life ministry. Let the few 5 to 10 people do their thing, but there's not really a hope that it's going to be abolished.
Right.
You know, it's just like, okay, well, it's a thing that we just have to deal with. You know?
A defeatist kind of approach.
Yeah. So you guys are basically saying, look what's happening in your backyard, you know, right in front of you, and no one's mentioning anything, right? You guys should at least have a ministry or something.
Yes,
you know? And I'm sure you guys are. Maybe you guys even offered help. Like, here's some pamphlets.
We did.
So
you had the pulse on exactly what was going on.
Right. Nice. Okay.
Right. So, look, the church has a long-standing involvement in the protection of the unborn, right? We were mentioning earlier about the Didache and how early this has been going on, but it includes infanticide. So, like the Romans would leave newborns and other unwanted children out, exposed to the elements, just left to die. It was Christians that would stand in the gap and pick them up and protect them and save them from death. So definitely that is obeying the positive injunction of the sixth commandment to thou shalt not kill, but what is the opposite of that? Preserve the life of your neighbor. So definitely that is an element that needs to be discussed. What should be the church's involvement and what does that look like? Personally, I don't think that picketing churches is the right approach. But I do agree that the involvement, or there is no noise from the church almost at all on the issue of abortion. It's empty. The mills should be full of people from the church. However, if we go, for example, to Acts chapter 6, verses 1 through 7, and let me read it real quick. In those days, when the number of disciples was increasing, the Hellenistic Jews among them complained against the Hebraic Jews because their widows were being overlooked in the daily distribution of food. So the 12 gathered all the disciples together and said, it would not be right for us to neglect the ministry of the word of God in order to wait on tables. And so they then choose 7 men, and they give them this responsibility because the apostles said, we will give our attention to prayer and the ministry of the word. So what do I think the church's involvement should be? Remember that the church has one calling: to preach the word of God, the unchanging, omnipotent God who can save people, who calls people to repentance and faith in Christ, and then to walk in holiness. So the pastors and elders are not necessarily meant to be involved in every possible issue out there, because if you want to talk about injustice, there's much more than just abortion, and that's something that pro-choicers charge us a lot with. Why aren't you out there doing everything for everything else, right? But really, if you try to put, just think about if at your workplace, say that your boss told you, okay, I need you to man the revenue recovery window and be in human resources and be filing everything downstairs. You can't do everything, right? And you're not going to be good at anything because you are doing everything. And so there is wisdom in what I just read from Acts chapter 6 in delegating. And so while I don't think that churches are able to be involved in everything, and pastors and elders need to devote their time to the preaching and the studying of the word to the people, I do think that there is an obligation, because of the sixth commandment, to encourage the formation of groups that will band together, and that the elders will oversee, that the elders will help, that the elders will support, that the elders will train in evangelism, that they will support with anything that they need. For example, we go out there and we don't want to just, number one, we do want to share the gospel with people. We do want to call people to not murder the babies. But we also want to tell them, if you need diapers, we have those for you. If you need food and milk for your baby.
Living out the gospel. And that's only possible with the backing of a church. It's impossible for one person or one family to take up all that responsibility. We do need Christians out here willing to make themselves available in any capacity, because there is a deep need for mothers and families struggling.
It's an encouragement to have the church back you up in this.
We're beyond thankful that we feel like we're blessed with that right now.
Our church is praying for us. Actually, tomorrow evening they're including Arks of Bulrushes in their prayer list in our evening service. So we're very blessed.
Actively reminding us, like, hey, what can we pray for you about? Right. Which is like beyond a blessing
it is,
for us, because sometimes it's easy to feel alone. It's not an easy ministry.
No, and I'm sure that the leadership is thankful, that their members are out there, And, so I know for a fact Randy is. He thinks you guys are a huge blessing, and the fact that Chris and us and a few others are involved.
That's cool.
He knows it's a huge impact and it's a blessing. So
I understand the I guess a point of wisdom. I understand the urgency in manning the abortion mills, right? So we're talking about how there's very few people at the church out there, and that we need more people.
Right.
Just to add to the point of the urgency, do you know what the 2018 through 2019 fiscal year of Planned Parenthood's report states about how many abortions were performed? Do you know that?
I don't know that.
And remember, these are only reported. So.
Exactly. Just take a guess. Take a wild guess.
For the year?
For the fiscal year 2018-2019.
Let's say for Planned Parenthood only. Let's say, I don't know, I'll throw a number out, 3,000.
You are actually close, but it's 345,672.
No, that's not close. You said 3,000.
I said 3,000.
I thought you said 300,000. I'm sorry. Well,
wow.
Times
300.
300,000.
And that's not including family planning. So,
right.
Wait, so 300,000.
345,672 in the United States.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So it just letting that sink in, listener, because
we'll attach a link so people can view, more about that and
right and
this is just Planned Parenthood.
Just Planned Parenthood.
So there's other clinics.
There's family planning, which is I feel almost as big as Planned time her head. When I was volunteering in Downey, it was a family planning. The oldest abortion mill in Bakersfield is a family planning. So they're pretty big.
Man.
So my point with bringing that number is, we understand the urgency. It's similar to people dying every day without hearing about Jesus, or it's similar to people starving around the world. There's an urgency, right? But the worst thing that churches can do, I think, is to just grab a few people, put them out there in the abortion mills, and would provide them no mental, spiritual, emotional preparation, and just send them out there. Why? Because of an urgency, because babies are dying.
Yeah.
That would be very unwise. Churches should be training people how to evangelize, how to speak clearly, how to reason, how to discourse, how to love people, how to be civil. John Calvin said, "Zeal without knowledge is like a sword in the hand of a lunatic."
Yeah.
So that couldn't be any more true in this. And
I can attest to that.
right, and this
My
is coming.
first years are.
But this is coming from John Calvin, a pastor who established an academy that trained people that knew they were training to die. They were about to be martyred because of preaching of the gospel. So he understood the urgency, but he still understood also the importance of being knowledgeable. So I believe patience, training, and preparation is key. That should never be compromised, because God's sacred and beautiful truth would be compromised if we just send people out there.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, anyone who hears that, if they don't, and I asked this too on my Since Edified group, if your church has a pro-life ministry, and I think it was like a number like 80% said no, or 90% said no.
Mm-hmm.
And given it's not like an accurate poll, it's only just the people that are in there.
Sure.
But still, I mean, I can see that being true though. And not many churches have an established pro-life ministry.
I mean, the actual gospel kind of should enliven us to care about life, because the gospel is life.
When I asked Nick what caused him to go to pro-life ministry early on, he's only been saved for like 6 years.
Right.
So it's like, I asked him like, well, what caused you to just go straight forward? Like he went head first into this, and he had his way of explaining it. And at the end, if I had to conclude it, and I said it, I was like, so basically you're saying just being a Christian, hearing the gospel and being a Christian is what caused you to do this.
Yeah.
It made me feel like, whoa, like how come I didn't even know about abortion? And I mean this, I didn't know about abortion until like maybe like my sophomore, junior year of high school, So
That's actually really early. Really?
Really?
Most people don't know about it.
Wow, yeah. And I only knew about it because of Living Waters and these things online that I found.
Yeah, there's one other thing though, as far as churches supporting pro-life groups, and why that is important. When we're out there, a lot of people go to these clinics not to get an abortion, right? So we see a lot of people going there for STD tests, for contraception, not referring to the abortion pill, but anything else that is offered. They do offer other things. I've even heard that family planning is going to offer a diet plan. I mean, but would you take a diet plan from a place that kills children? I'm not so sure. But the point is that people go there for other things. And so in our approach, and why I think it's important to keep a collected, cool mind, is we don't like to assume what people go in there for.
Right.
And so when we see someone come in, we make sure that we tell all our volunteers, never assume what they're there for, but offer help and offer hope for whatever it is that they need.
Survivors actually offer that.
Nice.
And that was something I really was encouraged by. Like, we can do more. Like, there's so much we can do. We don't have to limit ourselves to just being out there.
Right.
And let's say you can, because you have, maybe like 6 children, or you work full time.
Right.
There's so many other ways you can get involved, for mostly by praying, by like just making your resources available. Like if you have a home, or if you have a car, if you need to drive someone to, we usually refer women to the pregnancy center. So we sometimes need volunteers to take the women to the pregnancy center if they don't have a car, or even like offer an Uber ride, pay for their Uber ride to take them to the pregnancy center. Like those little, like what seems little, it's not little in reality, but actually do a lot for the pro-life movement. And by them seeing that love in us, it's hopefully a glorifies the gospel
Right.
when we do ultimately end up sharing with them the good news of Christ.
Mhm.
They see that we actually do love them and are backing up our words with action.
So one thing I talked to Nick about, we talked about how there's other resources out there. You know, you don't have to get an abortion.
Ever.
When we go out there, we're actually offering hope. And they might see it as you're just condemning us. But really, no, we're offering hope here. That's why the gospel is it's necessary for this.
Yeah, they're like the verse says, Christ did not come into the world to condemn the world.
Right, yeah. It's already condemned.
Yeah, there's nothing like what would be good for us to remind. I mean, as far as to emphasize that we're there to be alongside them.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to speak the truth in love. Like if they are being hardened, we gently remind them, please do not murder your child. We also speak on behalf of the people that don't have a voice, which is the unborn.
Mm-hmm.
So we are trying to be multifaceted in our love for the women, for the babies, for the workers. It's like I said, it's a very multi-layered issue, and that's why anyone can literally help in any way. It's even if it's just not physically being at the abortion mill. There's so many other ways you can help. Yeah.
No, there is. One of the ways to, once again, I want to do a little plug out there. Arks of Bulrushes on Facebook. Go on there and like it. No, I wish I could be as good as like Ben Shapiro. Just kind of stop in the mid and
Facebook.com/AOB Ministry.
That's a good point. AOB Ministry, because I thought it was the whole thing.
Okay. See, I didn't even know that.
AOB Ministry. That's good. Okay, so.
Can I just bring up one more point?
Yeah, go ahead.
We have other goals for being out there as well, even for those like you mentioned, Ben, that are not getting abortions. One of our main goals is to get them out of the abortion mill. So we do offer material like other places they can get birth control, other places. I even had a flyer once I found out they were doing diet plans at Family Planning. I started offering Weight Watchers information from local, here we give alternatives because we want family planning to not have business. We want them to be empty. Right. Yeah, Planned Parenthood.
And there's people that may not know because like when we say Planned Planning, I thought that was I didn't realize that's the place that we go to.
Yeah.
Right.
There's
so family planning is an actual like another Planned Parenthood, but it's a different business, right?
Right, okay. There's Planned Parenthood and Family Planning Associates, and they both do abortions.
Right.
And so our whole goal is another one of our goals is to essentially shut down, the place where they have no more business, where they're given no more money by people, whether it's just for birth control or whatever it is. We try to get people away from the place.
From those businesses that kill children. So I talked to Nick about this last time, and he wants to make, he mentioned the website that we don't have yet.
But that's something I want to talk about. We could probably work together on that.
Yeah, we will. It'll be up soon. So Nick and I, we talked about what's needed for a pro-life ministry, right? And how we have to depend on God. We're there to preach the gospel and try to save babies. Yes. Who knows? Like maybe the person that walked in changes their mind last minute or something. We never know how God works. So we also answered a few objections. Nick talked about refuting bodily autonomy, and he also shared the acronym SLED.
Oh yeah, it's a good one.
I did not know until he brought it up to me.
I love SLED.
So it is. It proves that it is a human person in the womb, right?
So simple, so profoundly simple, and anyone can learn it.
Anyone who hasn't listened to the episode with Nick, I recommend that they listen to it. It's super helpful. Yeah. I kind of want to take a different approach with you guys, and partly it's because of your experience and also Ben. Clearly, he does his homework, and he thinks through these things.
He's the brainiac of our marriage.
No, even so far in this discussion, I'm learning a lot just from the little notes that you shared, and I know you have a lot more in there.
I do. I have all day.
Okay, so I want to discuss this whole idea of abolishing abortion, right? Some say that we should just do it immediately, where we just want to abolish it completely, and others want to say, well, we're going to slowly and gradually get there. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I think it's good to first define those two things, right? So what is incrementalism and what is immediatism? There's an article I found helpful, actually by an incrementalist, Joe Carter in the Gospel Coalition, and he defines incrementalism like this. Quote, supporting legislative actions that affirmatively protect the unborn and women, reduce abortion, and have the potential to pass current constitutional scrutiny, end quote. That last part, the potential to pass current constitutional scrutiny, is key, and it packs a lot. But going to immediatism, the same article defines it like this, quote, the idea that incrementalism should be rejected and that the most or only moral position is the immediate and total abolition of abortion, end quote. So these are very, pithy and general definitions, right, that pack a lot within. It really boils down to one question. Which authority will you ultimately submit to? It is the principle we see in Acts 4, verses 19 through 20, when Peter and John are being questioned by the authorities and they're being warned not to speak in the name of Christ. They say, whether it's right in the sight of God to listen to you rather than to God, you must judge. And so incrementalists generally hold to the idea that decisions handed down by the Supreme Court of the United States are as valid as law, because anything that goes against it is generally struck down by lower courts. Lower courts usually don't want to go against the Supreme Court, and therefore it's usually defeated. Now, I'm not saying that Christians that call us to submit to the Supreme Court are in sin or anything like that, but I do think that they are being inconsistent with their claim that Scripture and God is our ultimate authority. And also, this brings us to a discussion of the doctrine of the lesser magistrates. And this is something that I recently heard about, but it's basically lower magistrates, meaning those in authority, those in lawful authority, elected or named, who receive a dictate or an order by a higher magistrate that is immoral, incorrect, or harmful to the people, and they do not obey it, but they rather, in order to protect their citizens or their constituents, stand in the gap between the people and the higher authority. So there's an example in history. There was a higher magistrate. Roman Emperor Trajan, while appointing a subordinate authority, handed him a sword and instructed him, saying, use the sword against my enemies if I give righteous commands, but if I give unrighteous commands, use it against me. So it's a check and balances of power, and it ultimately points us to the fact that no king, no law, no man can make an ultimate law that is perfectly and completely binding upon the conscience of man. All laws made by men have to conform to the law of God. And so incrementalists will like to point to Romans 13, to the first two verses, and say, see, we're supposed to submit ourselves to authorities because they're appointed by God. Do they mete out unjust rules? That's fine. You need to submit. However, the next two verses speak of the fact that they are ministers of God to inflict vengeance upon evil, and they are ministers for your good. And so what happens the moment that these magistrates step out of God's will and they do what is evil and unlawful? Do we submit to unlawful commands? Do we submit to unjust commands? That is where the doctrine of the lesser magistrate comes in. But to bring it to our context, it seems like a lot of people hold up the Supreme Court of the United States as if they were gospel truth every time that they speak. Right. Roe v. Wade, they say, is the law. Therefore, all we can hope to do is to try to save as many babies as we can, try to make the abortion clinics as clean as we can so that the women don't have any health complications or anything like that, or perhaps try to limit the stage of development that abortions take place, but ultimately cannot strike at the root of the beast, which is to abolish abortion. And so while incrementalists would say, yes, we want to see abortion ended, I'm not so sure that is the case. There was a 19th century slavery abolitionist, William Lloyd Garrison, who described incrementalism like this: gradualism in theory is perpetuity in practice. So if you have no end goal in sight, what is your purpose? And so that's where immediatism comes in and says, this is an unlawful command by the higher magistrate. First of all, Roe v. Wade is not law, is an opinion handed down by justices. This is the judicial branch. The judicial branch is not supposed to be the legislative branch.
Right.
However, even so, the lower magistrates have the authority, we're talking state level, we're talking county level, to disobey the mandate given by a higher magistrate. Would there be consequences? Sure, maybe the withdrawal of federal funds or something like that. But it is there. And so during the time of slavery, we also had incrementalists and immediatists, like I just read, the quote from the 19th century. But they would have the same issue. They would say, look, are you going to keep nibbling at the edges of this, or are you going to kill the snake right now? And so that's what we face right now. So, but to be clear, I am grateful for every baby that is saved by incrementalist bills or efforts. However, where is it going to end? And there's an objection here too. People would say, well, we live in a sinful world. Are you really saying that you expect abortion to end? As long as we are living in a fallen world, sin will continue.
Well, then make no laws available.
Precisely.
Because that's so inconsistent with... I'm sure that if someone was to break into their house, they would immediately be calling the police.
Absolutely.
You know, so why are we going to distinguish between some justice and other justices? Like, I don't understand that.
It's a kind of logic that's not going to take you very far. Like I said, stealing. Well, people would still find a way to steal if you regulate it. Let's make stealing legal then.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody would say that. The moment that you try to touch their wallets or their bank accounts, they will show you objective morality.
Yeah, and we're not like having this fascination for laws. Like, this is coming from two libertarians. But any infringement upon my person is none of your right to do. And if we, again, can prove that the baby does have personhood, you are infringing upon their right to life.
And one final point, because incrementalists really, this is why they really, I think that as a nation, speaking just of the United States, of course this is a global wide issue, but speaking just of the United States, incrementalists really want to emphasize vote conservative or vote Republican. Why? Because this president will appoint conservative justices, and the justices will overturn Roe v. Wade.
Well, that has been proven false so many times.
But not only the emphasis on the justices, but the emphasis on a quote-unquote conservative precedent. But here's what I want us to consider. When we start treating justices and the federal level, the presidency, as our hope, as what we ultimately look to, as what we ultimately hope will bring about righteousness, aren't we going back to 1776? Isn't this what we broke off from England in the first place because of tyrannical? Because all power was centered in a few of the powerful. That's not how our country was set up. Our country has given state sovereignty to the states, to be redundant, but the states have relinquished that power to the federal, and it's time that we bring awareness of the fact that lesser magistrates can interpose. And you know what? Actually, we have examples of a lot of abolitionist bills. I mean, I can Oklahoma, that one is still pending right now.
There was one in Texas.
We have I have it right here and I can't read it. Washington, Indiana, Idaho, Alaska. And you know what? A lot of these bills, most of these bills, guess who is the most ardent opposer of these bills? Is it pro-choicers?
No.
I can imagine. What you're going to say now is the pro-lifers.
Yep.
Incrementalists.
Okay.
Yep. Incremental. Yeah, because they like to claim the term pro-life, but we're pro-life too.
Oh,
but yeah, incrementalist.
Okay, incrementalist. Okay, yeah. So
seeing these words, incrementalism and immediatism, it's like, what? Like, I don't care about that. And how would you convince someone? I'm wondering, okay, well, that's not really practical, though. I mean, you still got to go through the law and still got to go through the Supreme Court. Sure. So how do you convince someone of that, because...
No, that's a good question. I think that it's good to think about the implications and how would it look like and the practicality of it all. My very first thought is, even if right now, for example, you're asking me, and I did tell you not to throw me a softie.
Sorry.
So thank you for that. Even if, for example, right now on the spot, I can't give you the whole structure of what it would look like, and I really doubt many people would know how it would look like until it happened. The question is, when is the right thing to do something? When you've got it all figured out, or if you have the ability to do it now to convince the people, bring awareness to the people, hey, the federal beast is not meant to be the law of the land.
Right.
Ultimately, as Christians, we bow down to one King, Jesus Christ, and we're just pilgrims in this world. And so therefore, when a higher magistrate brings down an unrighteous command, through the proper channels, we disobey it.
Right. Well, I mean, and one way that looks like is even how the bills are written. I don't know if you want to expand on like our previous experience with... There was a bill on the table in Kern County that we were going to bring up again. That was already signed, right, by a lot of the local...
City council?
Yeah. But it got tabled. I forgot why. Right. But anyways, we were bringing it back up again, and we ended up actually putting it back down again because it compromised too much on what is life, their definitions of it. Was
consequences
just too,
for the mothers.
Yeah, it was too compromised. Like, no, we will actually be lying if we bring this up. So, do you remember? I don't know if you want to talk about that.
So there were also financial implications for the city. If something like this were to be handed down, which is what I mentioned before, right? The consequences to lesser magistrates interposing and standing up to higher magistrates.
But do you remember how the bill was written? It was too soft, like the way they were approaching abortion and the definition of...
It was as intimidating as a grandpa trying to bite you with his gums. No
it did
teeth.
Nothing. It did nothing. Oh, wow. And if they wanted, like, that's literally the base they want to go by. Like,
basically, what happened?
Nothing changes.
There were several versions of it, and it ultimately was boiled down to here's the only consequence that can come about from an abortion. The families of the deceased, in this case the unborn, can bring a civil suit against the county. Against Planned Parenthood. But that's it. You can only bring a civil suit, which means for punitive damages, for money, but no criminal charges.
I know, and it felt compromising in ideology and in so many other ways. They compromised what abortion really was, and it wasn't an honest bill. And
wow.
I mean, it sounds good. Like when we first heard, it's like, oh, that sounds like an amazing, amazing approach. But as we started reading it,
people see incrementalism as like the means, right? This is the means we're going. Yeah. So we agree with you guys on the end goal, and then they look at immediatism. I have trouble saying that word. And they say, well, you guys just want to skip the means and go right to the end. That's what it sounds like, you know.
Yeah,
but what you're saying though, you're actually saying that you're saying no. We're not going the means. We're just saying
absolutely.
We don't want to compromise on definitions. Yeah. Like abortion is murder, and it's always going to be murder.
Right.
I don't think there's any integrity in softening the crime or lying about it. And
goes back to the sanctity of all life.
That's what incrementalists tend to do, kind of diminish the personhood of the baby. And I don't agree with that because I don't...
And they might take angst with you for saying that, but we're trying to follow the logical conclusion of their arguments. Yeah.
I'm sure there's Christians on both sides, right? Would you say that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
I mean...
But what's more consistent, right? What's more consistent with the Bible? So
like why would we make compromise? Like it's called modalism, right? Where they compromise the sovereignty of God and free will, and that gets you nowhere. Like, because once you start compromising one area,
the Molinist?
Molinist,
Yeah,
sorry, it leads you absolutely nowhere. There's just no integrity in that.
Well, this is why a lot of, and I see Nick post this a lot. Whenever, like, it shows Trump like, okay, well, he reduced the funding for Planned Parenthood, and yet.
Why not reduce all of it?
Yeah, and also, but for us, it's not really a celebration. It's something to really celebrate. But like, okay, well, you're just giving them a little bit less money now, but you're still giving them money,
Why doesn't, like, we should be bold enough because we have the truth. Why aren't we bold enough to say what it truly is? And I feel like a lot of people on the incrementalist side, they don't want to offend. I'm saying for the ones I've encountered. I don't know about everyone. But it just seems like a system of compromise, and I don't think that's...
Here's the rub. Incrementalists will charge immediatists. And again, I disclaimer, I love my incrementalist brothers and sisters. I gotta make that disclaimer because this can get very heated to the point of dividing people, but I think we can have a good, rational, even polemic and honest discussion on this without signing someone off the kingdom. But going back to this, incrementalists will often charge immediatists with saying, you guys have done nothing in the legal arena to advance the cause of the unborn.
That's not true.
Whereas we have, look at all these bills and, okay, this bill, and I'm just being sarcastic here, but this bill, the abortion mill has to be swept before anyone walks inside. Victory. Well, the problem with that is, like I read before the quote, there is no end in sight, and so this is really going to go on in perpetuity, because you have incrementalists basically standing. What are those seats called when you go to a game? The bleachers. And the president and the Supreme Court is playing against the abortion advocates, and once a Supreme Court player comes in, they cheer, but once that Supreme Court justice does not do what they hope that they would do, everyone just groans again and says, hopefully the next one will do something, or hopefully the next president will do something. But again, we have had, and actually the justices that gave us Roe v. Wade were, if I remember correctly, except for one, they were all Republican. So they were all conservative in name. Yeah. But they brought us Roe v. Wade. And even Roe v. Wade, I recommend everyone to read it. I've read it, and it's gone way beyond its original scope. Yeah. But anyway, the point being that incrementalists are telling us, just hold on, wait until someone does something. In the meantime, just try to save as many babies as possible. And I agree, let's save as many babies as possible. But why not end abortion now? Why not bring awareness of the power of the states? Right. And why allow not just an abortion, but the federal beast taking more and more rights every single day?
Like I said, we even disagree with how the bill is written. That's a whole nother discussion in itself. Right. Yeah. There's so many layers to it. No, I've just started studying it, so it's very...
No, same here. That's why I'm not saying much, because like it's one of those things where it's a new territory for me. It's kind of foreign to me, to be honest. And but at the same time, I really need to see those movies, In Abortion Now and there's two, right?
Babies are murder here. Babies are still murder here.
Okay, all right. Is there one that's
there's another one from that connects it to racism and slavery. MAFA 21, I think. I'll send that to you too.
All right,
and it connects like the correlations between.
One thing, you know what I want to do that you just brought up right now is because I haven't read Roe versus Wade. It'll be interesting to have you guys talk about, like, we could read through. I don't know how long is it.
Any bill's probably so
long. But it's actually not that long.
We can get like an abridged version.
If I remember correctly, it's actually two cases that are being dealt in one decision. It's just commonly come to be known as Roe v. Wade. But it's about 24 pages, if I remember correctly.
I'm wondering if we can get like some of the points where you think it's just gone too far. Where it doesn't actually cover. It doesn't cover the what's going on today. It doesn't actually that case doesn't really back that up.
Yeah.
I'm not making sense here, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, I know what you're saying, yeah.
maybe to review some of those parts where.
Yeah,
Because it's one thing that I haven't done. I would love to do that with you guys, and
That'd be cool.
or even others too. Have Nick here too, maybe.
Yes.
But yeah. So I mean, we can go on about that topic alone, right?
Absolutely.
And
let's do it.
yeah, let's do it right now. So I've been encouraged by some of your guys' stories as far as people turning away and all that, right? So like I told Nick, right now there's probably a little child walking around because you guys were out there. You know what I mean? And who knows how many mothers turned away without letting us know.
I actually have gotten to witness many years later. Well, it wasn't my action directly. So at Survivors, because they had been doing it for like 10 years before the activism pro-life training camp, and we had a lady come up to us and said, I was here last year and I saw your guys' sign and I decided to save my baby.
Oh man.
And that was like a few years later.
Right.
She encountered us again. And I think it was like an employee that worked, like I think it was Venice Beach we were at. And I was like, oh, we didn't even know about that, but we found out later. And how many more instances of cases that we don't even know about. And, I told Ben the other day, was it Brianna? Oh, Nick. I told Nick, like, I think some of it, that is good because we can easily become puffed up if we saw like look at all that I'm doing. It's like all glory to God, and we just have to trust him that the people that he wants to be saved, all the babies he wants to be saved, will be saved, and we're just ambassadors doing our job in faithfulness.
Well, my landlord, I mean, he's not a believer. He just but he when he's drinking and stuff, he'll see me and be like, bro, thank you for what you're doing. And then when he's sober again, he told me this recently. He's all, hey, so my sister was gonna have an abortion years ago, and she saw people outside, and she turned away. So I was like, really? I was like, so I kind of want to ask you guys, has there been instances where
I have another one.
Go for it.
One that's a little bit more personal. Yeah. Daniel, if you're listening to this, which I'm sure you will, because I'm gonna show it to you. It's his.
Daniel is famous now.
It's his. Just kidding. It's his credit. So what happened was a few years ago, I was interviewed on a radio station, and Daniel decided to post it on YouTube. The interview, no matter how much I was like, no, don't post it. I hated it. But because I'm like, I called the lady evil. So she was a pro-choice, and the host, he was like, wait, just calm down a little bit. Anyway, so I think it was like 5 years later, I actually got to meet the woman, Sunny. She told me, she came up to me, she's like, Daniel, I listened to that interview that Daniel posted on YouTube. I was currently pregnant at the time. She was in high school, and she ended up keeping her baby. And she told me, thank you, Amaris, because I want to cry right now. But that's probably been the most memorable incident. None of the glory goes to me. Like, I did a horrible interview, but it got her thinking, like, I guess it got her thinking more about abortion and what it was, because she saw something like on Facebook.
That's just so cool.
And I get to see the little baby like grow. She's probably like 8 years old now, or 9, and just to know like, oh wow, God used that, and that's all glory to Him. So that's been a really cool, memorable experience. Right. And sometimes, like what happened a few weeks ago at the abortion mill, a lot of the times the women won't come and talk to us. Maybe they're afraid of us or something, but we typically know if someone's changed their minds. Like we've had instances where they have come and talk with us, and that's always a blessing. Last year was like 4 cases of women. It seems like a little bit, but you know what, it's not, because each person is a life made by God.
Right.
And we were able to give them a diaper bag, and and I gave them my phone number, but a lot of them don't reach back out because it is a hard situation.
Right.
But
that's interesting.
At least to make ourselves available is all we can do. And and thankfully our church had donated so many like items, baby items, so we were able to give her like a good amount of items, so that was really cool to actually see that. I love those moments when we're able to talk with them and share the gospel with them.
Which goes to show that anyone can do this. So I know I said before that training patience is required, but that's not to discourage any Christian. If you know the gospel, because the gospel is essential. If we save babies but we don't tell people of where they're heading without Christ, we have not accomplished anything of eternal value. But anyone can do this. If you know the gospel and you want to just call people to repentance and to choose life, it's as easy as going to the mill. And in love, that was my next point. So obviously when you're out there, the gospel is already offensive enough. It's already a very hostile environment. It's already a very tense. You can feel it. You can almost taste how tense and how dark it is out there. And so we strive to make Arks of Bulrushes be known for charity and civil discourse with people. We don't want to unnecessarily provoke someone to anger if we don't have to.
Yeah. I've definitely done that when I first started going to the abortion mill, like early 2010s, like around that time. I would say things like "close your legs" or really horrible stuff, and I did not. I don't know. It was really wrong of me to do.
No wonder.
I offended a lot of people, and you know what? But I've grown from that.
Sure.
And
Well, that's good to know, because it's like that's what kind of what I asked earlier in the beginning was like your experiences, because a lot of times when you've been doing something for so long, like I'm not going to believe you if you said you did everything the right way,
Right.
Like, and so I want to know the things that you didn't, because I'm just starting. You guys know that I'm just starting with you guys,
right.
And I'm always worried I'm going to mess up. I'm going to say something wrong, and Nick knows, like, I'm always asking him questions. Okay, Nick, what do you say when this happens? Or,
but that's like you said, it's gonna happen. And I would literally go by myself a lot with my mom. I had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
I just knew I had a passion and I had a lot of anger, because I was really angry that
right.
babies were being murdered. And I think that's good passion, but it needs to be bridled with maturity and godliness, and not thinking we're better, because I'm no better than any of these women. It's only by the grace of God that I am a Christian, and to extend that hope to other people. So it is the height of hypocrisy to say stuff like that. And
it's good.
God definitely humbled me. I've had some scary instances being in the abortion mill. I've almost got run over in Downey.
Wow.
I've almost got pepper sprayed. So I've learned a lot better now what to say and what not to say.
And there's times even if you say the right things in the most gentle way, someone who truly hates God and His truth and loves unrighteousness and darkness, who knows what they will do, and it might just take your phone, right?
But you're right, but not like it's a not. It isn't. Yeah, but unnecessary provocation is not.
Right.
It's not good.
And just so people can know, I mentioned taking the phone twice.
Yeah.
It's because someone took my phone like on my third week being out there or something, but that was not related to.
Technically, you gave it to me.
Yeah, I know.
Arturo's so nice.
I let someone borrow my phone, and anyway, but then again, I really wish I could focus more time on what we said earlier about, like, we're the only ones out there, and at times we can't make it, right? But I told Nick it's so wise that we have a rule. If there's no more than 3 people, we cancel.
Yeah.
And it's sad that we have to cancel. We can't find 3 people, and things happen. We have to go out of town. We're sick.
Sure.
We have to work or whatever.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be nice if we could just call it, the church down the street? Hey, do you have 3 guys that could come out this Saturday or something?
Right.
We're kind of low, and it'd be kind of cool if the churches locally would.
Our dream is, it'd be awesome if we could have both abortion mills full of people, every single hour they're open. To have someone there. Okay, maybe not even full of people. We could just have like 5 people just to make ourselves available.
Yeah. Yes.
And, run Planned Parenthood and Family Planning out of business. Yeah. That would be amazing.
Well, you would think that being the Bible Belt, California, Bakersfield, right? We would that you'd see more out there, and we just don't. And part of it, I'm not trying to condemn any or try to even guilt people into coming. I'm just saying that maybe they don't know how much the need. There's a need for this, and it could be like me, how I was for the first, 10 years of being a Christian. abortion was nowhere near. Like I knew I one day I wanted to go out, but I didn't know. I thought there was already Christians out there, doing what we do now. But it's not. We need more people out there, and hopefully, I really hope that Christians. Right now, this podcast is being heard locally for the most part, but I would love for more Bakersfield churches, especially us Reformed people. Like we believe in God's sovereignty, we believe in responsibility. And we're seeking out the elect, That's what really evangelism is. We're out there. We'll endure all for the sake of the elect, right? So they can come to salvation, but also to preserve life. So, yeah, do you guys want to share anything else before we wrap up? So Ben, you have a lot to share. So, final thoughts. I know you couldn't cover a lot of your notes. And
we'd be here for weeks.
And I knew this would happen too. I knew you're gonna have a lot of notes prepared and. So we easily went through the whole time and we didn't cover all of it. But is there anything that you want to share?
Actually, it's not in my notes, but I just thought of it impromptu. A sample of what I personally, and actually characterize as much of what all of us, the structure of what we say out there to anyone that's, just parked, as soon as they open the door. It will go something like this. Good morning. I have some literature for you that's for you to read at your own time. No pressure. I'm not sure what you're here for today, and I don't want to assume what you're here for today, but I just want to make you aware, and again, just a little pause here, they can hear us through the wall. So I know I'm already going long, and you have a short window. At one of the mills, they can hear us. Yeah. But in the other place, we do have to be a lot more brief. But anyway, any money that goes towards this place goes towards the killing of the unborn, and I don't want to assume what you're here for. If you're here for an abortion, I would plea for you to turn away. There's always abortion is never a choice, and we are here to help you. We are here to offer you hope and resources if you need. And if you're not here for an abortion, please allow me to share a list of resources of other places you can go to. But I just know that abortion is not wrong because society says so, but because we have been created in the image of a holy and eternal God to whom we are going to give an account. And so he calls us to obey that law, but we have disobeyed it. And so we're here also to offer the good news of Christ, that if you turn and repent from your sin and turn to Christ, if you turn from this place of death and come to Christ who gives life, you will be saved, you will be forgiven of your sins. And we want to offer you a community of people. You cannot say that of family planning or Planned Parenthood. They will not be there to hold your hand. The moment that you see your baby go down the toilet after you've taken the abortion pills, they will not be there to hold your hand.
When you're struggling with suicidal thoughts, which is very, very common for post-abortive women.
And you will regret not having a child running around your house instead of being able to, like Michelle Williams just did. She won a Golden Globe Award and said that she did so because she was able to exercise her right to choose, which is very sanitized way of saying I was able to murder my child. That's how I was able to get this little golden idol. But we also tell people they will not be there for you from
essentially we'll always try our best to be there for them. Also making other resources available as far as like another place to get birth control, another place to get your diet plan. I think that's also another opportunity for evangelism too, because a lot of those people that do just go in for birth control, a lot of them will say, oh, well, I'm against abortion, but I really need birth control. And then it'll kind of lead into, oh, well, why are you against abortion? It's like, oh, well, because in this religion, like a lot of it's in Bakersfield, Roman Catholicism, right. Abortion is wrong. And that kind of leads into like an awesome conversation about God and the gospel. And because a lot of people who are going into Planned Parenthood aren't necessarily getting abortions, they're just, but we want to make ourselves available to any person going inside, It creates really valuable conversations. And we have met people who have actually turned away and gone somewhere else for birth control. That's also a really cool victory to see.
Good. Yeah. No, there's been a couple of times where nicely someone rejects. They'll take the recommendations or the reference packet, and then the Book of John or the Gospel of John, they'll just say, "Hey, well, I'm not ready for that." And I look back at it and I'm like, man, and I always have these moments, where I'm like, I wish I would have said this, and I wish I would have told that lady when I went to Planned Parenthood with you guys, and I wish I would have told her, well, can I take down your name just so I can pray for you?
Yeah.
I just wish I could have said that. Like I look back at it, I just stayed quiet. I'm like, all right. And
Yeah, because it's intimidating
and
environment sometimes.
Yeah, and
this is not just at the abortion mill. Even when you're at the grocery
Exactly.
store, anytime, there's always opportunity to be sharing the love of God. So.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, good. Yeah. I mean, Ben, I know you have a lot of more stuff to say, but we'll close.
I'll distill them into articles in your website.
Yeah. So Ben's a new author for Saints Edified.
The recommended resources.
That's right. Recommended resources. Do you have any resources for people to look up?
Yeah, I think Nick mentioned R.C. Sproul's book on abortion. That is an excellent book. I believe the subtitle is A Rational Look at an Emotional Issue. And there's no one better with
taking down hard concepts and making them palatable for the everyday person.
Yes.
R.C. Sproul's amazing at that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
There's 2 books by Randy Alcorn.
He's also amazing at taking hard concepts in.
One is called Pro-Life Answers to Pro-Choice Arguments, and the other one is called Why Pro-Life.
Those are more like introductory.
Right.
Yeah.
There's also Dr. George Grant's book titled Grand Illusions, The Legacy of Planned Parenthood. There's Dr. Gary North's When Justice is Aborted, Biblical Standards for Nonviolent Resistance, and that's when we're getting into the Doctrine of the Lesser Magistrate.
More political.
For people to if people are interested in learning more about that, there's Dr. North's book, and there's also Matthew Truhellis, and I'm sure we're going to put links for this, book called The Doctrine of the Lesser Magistrate, and the book of the Magdeburg Confession, which was edited by Matthew Truhella, but in reality is a confession written by the magistrates of the city of Magdeburg in the 1500s, in which they resisted the tyrannical rule of the king, trying to impede their religious freedom, and they would rather go hungry. They would rather have nothing come into the city and be starved and resist the king than to give in to his unrighteous commands. And so that is an excellent confession showing that eventually actually the king gave in and Magdeburg won. So that is an excellent example of the Doctrine of the Lesser Magistrate in practice. And later on the Reformation took that concept of the Lesser Magistrate and systematized it more. Roe v. Wade. Everyone, please read it. There's some parts that are kind of hard to read through, but push through, and it will actually be a very enlightening experience to see how things have changed. That's all I have.
What about Even Exile?
There's one more book. I didn't notice it here. It's called Even Exile and the Restoration of Femininity by Rebecca Merkel. I don't know if you want to describe the book.
It's basically an argument against modern feminism and why women should treasure and nurture their calling as wives and mothers. Okay. Or even single women, just women in the concept of womanhood in general. Okay. It's an amazing book, uplifting the role of women. Good. In a world full of feminism.
Good. Yeah, that's good.
Right, in a way that ironically.
Oh, he's read it too.
Ironically, feminism will tell you, we are offering you women the way that you will be more fulfilled. Yeah. But it really only boils down to a very utilitarian view in which you serve the majority. Yeah. Your purpose in life is to be another cog in the machine. You're just supposed to work to be empowered as a woman, to fulfill your dreams, which really only boils down to making money, traveling places, and then
serving
that's the end of your life.
Corporate world versus motherhood is making an impact on real souls that God has given you the responsibility to teach and nurture, and that is a great calling for women, which I feel is not really appreciated anymore. And so she sheds light on that.
And finally, I'm not sure if you wanted me to do this, Arturo, but you can visit us on Facebook, facebook.com/AOB Ministry, and you can contact us through arksofbulrushes@gmail.com. Really quick.
ARK as in kangaroo.
ARK as in kangaroo. Yeah. And our name comes from the narrative in the book of Exodus when Moses was born. Males were another example of unrighteous decree. The king gave out a decree that all males needed to be killed in Egypt. And so Moses' mom created this ark, created this crib made of bulrushes, and covered it with tar so water wouldn't get in. But she basically prepared him for burial because the situations were so dire. She hoped that he would be saved. And so,
but it actually was used as a means of life.
Right.
So just that kind of signifies what we want to do is give life. So that's what that signifies. Nice. The basket of
the basket, which is what we always tell people out there, is we have here a little basket. Now we use bags that they are more efficient, but that's not the point. Bags of bulrushes doesn't really
that's
have
a joke. We're now called bags of bulrushes.
but these arks, we fill them with goodies, maybe baby lotion or diapers or something. But we always tell women...
Not goodies, more like newborn necessities.
Newborn necessities. And we always tell women, this is... If you turn away today... It's just a small This is glimpse. For you, but this is just a token. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what we're prepared right now to give to you if you turn away and choose life.
Well, thank you. We need to do this again because clearly there's more to be talked about. And anyways, thank you guys for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we need to do it again, but until next time.